Hey, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we'll take a look at the install process for Laravel with Tailwind CSS version 2. I've had several requests and comments about this setup. Similar to a lot of other frameworks, Laravel uses Webpack for building and bundling for production. At the time of this recording, Laravel is still using PostCSS 7, and Tailwind CSS version 2 requires PostCSS 8. To get around this, there's a compatibility build for PostCSS 7. Do be aware that Laravel Mix and other frameworks may bump up to PostCSS 8 in the near future, and the install process will change just a little bit. I'll make a note of it when we're installing. Now, if you're new to the channel, I post up tutorials, tips, and tricks for web development, especially for developers that are just getting started. So if that's the sort of content you're interested in, please do subscribe to the channel. A couple of things you should know before we start. You should have Node and npm installed. I'll be using VS Code as my code editor. If you're on a Mac and need help with your web dev environment, I have a tutorial series on my channel to help you set up your Mac for web development, focusing on the terminal, Node, Git, VS Code, and much more. You can check out the videos in the top right corner here, and I'll post it in the description down below. And you should know a little bit about Laravel. Laravel is a PHP web applications framework. It's definitely come a long way from when it first started. It's comparable to Express on Node, Django on Python. It's now built its own Laravel kind of ecosystem now with a dev environment, server management, deployment, and other things. Let's go over to Tailwind and get started here. Since the release of Tailwind CSS, they've added this new integration guide section. And they've added one for Laravel. Let's click on that. And we'll use these steps as our guideline for our setup and install. Now, I'm not going to go through how to install PHP, Composer, and all that. There is a link here, and it's the same as this one in the documentation on Get Started for the install. And I'll post this into the link down below into the description. But we'll start with this line where we're going to create our Laravel project. Now let's open up terminal. I'm going to do Laravel new TW Laravel, and that'll be my project name. CD into that. I'm using Valet on macOS, and that's kind of a PHP dev environment that Laravel has developed. I'm going to do Valet. You don't have to do this part if you're not on macOS and you don't have Valet set up, but this just helps me with my host name. Otherwise, it'll just be localhost. And this is creating my link for me for my host. And I'm going to open up code. Let's go to tw test. And this is what is here for me. And this is set up because I have Valet set up. Otherwise, you would have to go and do, for you, if you're using just the regular Composer, you do PHP artisan serve. And this will open up in localhost, like a localhost.3000 or something like that. But since I'm using Valet, it's giving me an actual host name for me. Get rid of that. Now, with a Laravel install, we're going to be using Laravel Mix. Since Laravel is installed through Composer, it doesn't pre-install the npm packages for us. So we'll have to do that. npm install. So we'll install that. That's all installed. Let's clear that. Let's go back to Tailwind here. Now we've npm installed our dependencies here for npm. Now we got to, like I said before, since Laravel is using Webpack and PostCSS 7, we have to use the compatibility build. Let me open that up here. If you're getting this error for PostCSS 8, then you need to install the compatibility build here. Now, if we get to the point where they've updated it to PostCSS 8, then you don't need to do this anymore. You can just install it like normal. If you've already installed it with PostCSS 7, you would go here and uninstall this and run this, and this will install the PostCSS 8 npm packages. But since we need to use the compatibility build, we'll be installing this. And we're starting from this step because we didn't actually install it normally and got this error. So we're able to just start from this point. And I'm going to install it as a dev dependency -D. So that's done installing. I've had errors where I run this, I get an error. What I've been doing is I use the npx tailwind-CLI at latest init, and this seems to work. This is not mandatory. We can always just create our tailwind.config.js file manually and just paste this part in ourselves. This step isn't actually a mandatory step, but it's just a quick way to get your default settings for your Tailwind config. And what I want to do here is we're going to add a purge. So we're going to do mode layers. Need this as an object. And we'll do content. And I'm going to do resources blade.php. And these are our views in here. So the blade.php for our welcome screen. And we'll take a look at also JS files. That should be good. Resources. Name that properly. Save that. I'm also going to import colors. Our colors. CSS. I'm going to extend it here with colors. And I'm going to do rows. Colors dot rows. I'll also do teal. And I think you have to import teal now. You didn't have to do that before. Yeah, that should be it. And there's also now dark mode. I'm not gonna do anything with that in this video, but that's something new. And you can extend, there's some more stuff you can do here. You can also do some plugins here. There's the Tailwind Forms plugin that you can add. Here, I'm gonna create a new folder and I'm gonna do Sass file in here, app SCSS. And this will be our source CSS file. Well, I guess they did blade.js, and we can grab that one as well. Or we can just look okay. Let's create our source CSS file. So I'm going to grab this, add that here, and that's all we need to do for that. What I'm going to do here for me, you may not need to have to do it if you're using the PHP artisan serve. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to grab this, create another variable called mix app host, and this will be my URL. So I'm using tw.laravel.test, and that's because my project name is using tw.laravel.test for my valet. I'm going to close that. I don't need that anymore. Next step is the Laravel Mix. Let's open that up. Okay, so here's the Laravel Mix file, and let's take a look at what is on here. And we have here, the basic install is just to add this, but I want to go a couple extra steps. I want to add Sass, and I want to have a live hot reload where every time you're updating your files, it gets reloaded over here on your browser. So you don't have to go and refresh every time. So we're not going to do what's over here. Let's take a look here. Now let's add Sass first. To do that, we need .sass. And we're going to require our resource. We did Sass. We did app.scss. Here, we'll output it to CSS. This is going to take our source CSS file and put it in our public CSS. You can get rid of this. Now we're going to have options. And in here, this is where our post CSS will go. We're going to have process CSS URL false. And we're going to have post CSS Here we'll have require Tailwind CSS, comma there. This right here should be enough to get our Tailwind CSS working with our source CSS file if we were to run it. And what we need to do here is we're going to add browser, add one more browser sync. What we're going to do here is proxy process.env. I'm going to do mix post. And that's my file that I had over here in my env, so what I posted here. And I'm going to duplicate this, and this will be my host. I have one for open. This is external. And I'm going to have something for watch options. I'm going to ignore code. Save that. I think that all looks good. Now, since I'm using Valet, you might be using PHP Artisan Serve. And when it does that, you would replace your HTTP here with this. Now, what you would probably do is, I'll put it in the comments. So you could probably get away with just doing this, have it run like that, or you do this if you want to ignore the module as well here. I'm going to save that. There's a link to it on Laravel Mix. I'll post this in the comments down below. You can do a mixed browser domain test. This would be for Laravel Valet. So here's some, and then you just run npm run watch. So I'll post this in the comments down below as well. So let me cancel out of this. Hopefully there's no errors here. I just noticed one. Save that. And let's head on over to our view. Welcome Blade here. And I'm going to get rid of all this. Get everything out of that head. Get rid of this div. Now we need to include our source or our public file here. I'm going to create. So we can do that by doing link mix CSS / app.css. That will be based off of what's over here. Specified it to go public CSS. So the app will go from app.scss to public/css/app.css. So it should go over here once we run our script over here in got this. So we'll do that, npm run dev. Hopefully there's no errors. And it may install some new npm packages because of the webpack here. So it may install the Sass loader and Sass. It's browser sync. So yeah, it's installing the Sass loader here. Oh, it's telling me again. So you may have to run it a couple times. Like now it's running installing the browser sync. Adding them. Okay, so let's just run it one more time. Everything is built. Let's just take a look quickly. There's nothing here. Something in here. 6xx. There it is. That's up and running. Now you could probably also use assets if you wanted, but I'm using the mix one because I think it's better for these types of assets. I think assets just directly only links it, while mix actually does something to it if there's like a version or something like that. What I wanted to show you guys is next is npm run watch, and this will make it so it live updates as we go. That's done building. The script should be watching our files and hot updating and syncing to the browser now. If I do that, it'll automatically update for us. So it's browser syncing for us. Now yours may be a little bit different if you're not using Valet. It'll probably be localhost 3000. like that. It might be something like that if you're running it. Let's go and create a little bit of CSS markup for this. Let's do flex justify. Cancel out of this for a sec. Okay, I'm back here. Let's go justify center. We'll do item center. We'll do P4, MX auto, and H. I don't know if I need an H1. This will be setup install. Another div. Here I'll do grid all 2 gap 8. Here div text. Okay. Now what I want to do here is Brady to br do from I think 500. I'll do from the 2. It can also take one more argument for via for a third argument. Do rounded triple XL. Do shadow padding. Here I'll do H2 text 4XL. Do font bold. It's allowing me to do this kind of dot syntax thing here because of Emmet. Oh, I don't know if it'll actually work. Bold. I hit tab there. And that's something new with the Tailwind CSS IntelliSense that they just added the Emmet for that. And let's do Laravel text. Copy this. There's Tailwind version 2.0 or Lorem. Change this else. And we'll change this. Let's this teal, this blue. All that's done. Let's go and take a look. Oh, so that's almost there. I need one more div here. Let's save that. There we go. Add some classes to this. Text 6XL and text gray 500. Font bold. Margin bottom 10. So there we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at the build process. Cancel out of this. Let's open up our package.json, and these are the two scripts, so prod or production. Prod just does the production one, npm prod. But built it out for us. It looked like it's purged it, 4.87 kilobytes. Go over here, we can take a look. And here's our file. Now if I go to here, load this, do page source, go here, it's using the minified version of it. Okay, so that's the build process. That's pretty easy. Okay, let's have a little recap here. We can actually probably just go by this. We created our Laravel project. We installed the npm dependencies, which is mostly for Laravel Mix. We installed Tailwind through the PostCSS 7 compatibility build. And in the future, if PostCSS 8 gets updated on these frameworks, you can go and uninstall them, the compatibility build, and reinstall it through the normal Tailwind install. We created and set up our Tailwind config, and we used the npx tailwind-cli latest. So we use this npm mpx tailwind CSS CLI at latest -init. And you don't need to do it this way. You can just create the file, copy and paste this, and just paste this in if you want to do that way. And that might actually be easier sometimes. And we added our purge. We set up our Laravel mix, and we made a bit of a different configuration than what's here. If we can compare, we created with Sass, and we set up our browser sync. So every time we're making a change on our PHP blade here, it automatically updates over here and refreshes. And it required us to run the npm run dev several times because it had to install the Sass loader dependency and the browser sync dependency. After we did that, we went to our welcome blade, added our app.css here. And this is from over here in our public folder. And then after that, we just ran it and it started working. We added some Tailwind CSS classes, and this was what we came up with here. So hopefully you learned a little bit about how to set up and install Laravel with Tailwind CSS. And I'll talk to you guys hopefully in another video. Hey, if you've gotten this far, thanks for the support. This will help the channel grow. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to click the thumbs up button and leave a comment down below. To stay updated with the latest content from the channel, you can subscribe by clicking right here in the middle.